just start by introducing yourself and saying your name and your job?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tony Perry. I am the mayor of Middletown, New Jersey, best town in the state of New Jersey. And I'm looking forward to this interview.
How have you adapted so far to quarantine?
I have been working a lot more from home in the last few weeks. But obviously I have two roles, and I have the role of my full-time job, which I work for Hackensack Meridian Hospital. So I work at Riverview and Bayshore Hospital. So I work for them, and I also am the mayor of Middletown. So I have to balance those two out. So fortunately, my role, I'm not a clinical person, I'm not a medical person. So fortunately, I'm able to work from home in most of the things that I do for Hackensack Meridian. But then I'm here at the mayor's office right now, and we're working on a couple of things, trying to get the word out there to keep people safe. So my work schedule has really been the thing that has been most different about adapting to quarantine. But you try and do things that are as normal as possible during these difficult times. So I would say my job, not having to go to work every day, has been the thing that's been most different during the quarantine.
Can you just elaborate on some of the changes you've experienced, other than your job?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, here in, well, I don't go to stores a lot more often. I do most of my shopping anyway on Amazon, just like a lot of other people. The Amazon packages have now gone from this high to this high. But I'll say that the thing away from my job, for being mayor, for one, obviously we're now going to be having no members of the public at our meetings. This coming Monday will be the first time that the township committee has never had a town hall meeting without any members of the public. And so it'll be live. People will be able to watch the township committee meeting, and they'll be able to call in with their questions and their comments and sometimes their concerns. So that's one of the things that is different from what we've been doing normally. There's a lot of parades and a lot of events that should be happening right around this time for youth baseball and just community events that would normally be happening, and unfortunately they're not. But we're finding new ways, finding new methods to be able to do the different things that we would normally be doing and do them now. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm sure a lot more people would rather communicate with me via Zoom, just like you and I are doing right now, than having to come to town hall and sit in front of me. This is such a convenient way to communicate with folks that live around town.
Definitely. So can you talk more about what actions you and your family have taken to stay healthy and social distance during this time?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, my wife and we are expecting our first child come August. So my wife has been, has a little bit more hand sanitizer on hand and hand soap on hand than normally. But one of the most important things that I stress to everybody is, just practicing good hygiene is the greatest defense you can have. And I'm not talking about, taking a shower every day. I'm talking about washing your hands multiple times a day. Every time you touch something, you pick up germs and bacteria and viruses and all these different things just from placing your hands down. So Cloroxing your workspace, here at Town Hall, we've been, no members of the public are allowed in the building anymore. But the workspaces are being cleaned every so many hours. So for my family, the same exact way, making sure that, think about how many times you touch the mailbox and how many times you've cleaned the mailbox since you lived in your house. Probably never. But going out and just taking a Clorox wipe to your mailbox because you have your mailman or woman touching it, you're touching it, somebody else is touching it because they wanted to drop something off. So just ensuring that you're practicing, that you're cleaning your hands, you're washing your hands, and you're not touching your face. You're not touching your eyes or your mouth. Are very very important to follow those CDC guidelines.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
What is the importance of a routine, and have you created one since this quarantine and how it's changed?
I'm a very routine type of guy. I have a set routine that I tend to follow, but with my job at the hospitals, with being mayor, this is now my second year as the mayor. It's very difficult to have a set routine because you're constantly changing, you're constantly adapting, and that's good and bad. But I do have a little bit of a routine that that I haven't had to sway away from too hard. In my last job, I worked at home. In this job, I work from home most days. So my routine has pretty much stayed the same. It's only slightly different, but there's always going to be differences. You have to adapt. You have to change the way and your behaviors to keep yourself safe, to keep your family safe, to keep your loved ones safe. So I've slightly adjusted my routine, but there are a lot of people out there that have had to adjust their routines at a much greater degree than I have. And we here in town, we have a lot of volunteer firefighters and members of our emergency services, and they haven't change their routine. And that's something that's really important, is they're still getting out there at every fire call, every EMS call, getting out there and ensuring that, our police officers, ensuring that the public is safe and secure. So it's important that people know that while, here at Town Hall, we're closed down to the public, the business of the town is still being done. And we're just having to adapt to a new way of doing things.
So that leads me into my next question. How has Middletown as a whole responded to the quarantine?
I think very well. In the early days leading up to the Governor Murphy's actions to order people to stay at home, I think Middletown has responded very well. I think people have taken it more seriously as the more steps that we take. There's always going to be challenges in the beginning, and that's just, if you don't expect challenges, you're dreaming in a little ways. There's always going to be things that are difficult and decisions that you have to make. I wish I didn't have to make some of the decisions that we made early on by saying that everybody under the age of 18 had to be in their house by 8 p.m. But you needed to make sure and ensure that people, especially those under the age of 18, were staying safe. There was this misnomer and this idea out there that this virus wouldn't impact younger people. And, it's not, we're not trying to be, fear mongers. We're not trying to incite fear, but everybody has to take it very seriously. There's never going to be a time where a group of individuals are going to be immune to a virus that spreads just by touching a desk or a chair or a piece of paper. This virus doesn't care what you look like. It doesn't care how old you are. But I think Middletown has responded very well. I think people are taking it seriously, and the things that are happening in town that people are still doing, they're doing it with a certain type of caution. Today is Thursday, and in Middletown, that means it's Takeout Thursday night, where we encourage residents to go out and visit local restaurants for takeout service. And tonight we're going to be in Campbell's Junction at Pueblo, Mexico. And we're going to order, the entire township committee is going to be ordering dinner from there to try and help a small business here in town. But in the ways that we greet each other, in the ways that we talk to each other, it's much different. And I think you're going to see that even beyond this epidemic going across the entire world. You'll see people be a little bit more mindful of maintaining a certain distance from one another.
So, how have hospitals responded so far? And does Middletown have any cases of the COVID-19 virus?
So we do have cases of COVID-19, and I got to give a special, kudos and shout out to the head of our health department, Rich Benedetto, who's been doing a phenomenal job working with every individual that comes through. And I also have to give a kudos to a lot of our school nurses. Now that these nurses aren't physically at the 17 schools across town, it is amazing that they have stood up, and we're incredibly grateful here in Middletown to see the nurses from the different schools come together and help our health department. So Rich Benedetto and all the nurses across town have done such a great job. We do have COVID cases, and we are working with those people on a case-by-case basis to have them self-quarantine and have them maintain proper discipline and social distancing that is required of them. But we're monitoring them to make sure that they're getting better, and that this 14-day window that everybody talks about, that they self-quarantine for that amount of time, and we check in on them on a daily basis to make sure that they're doing okay.
Are there any task force that are like specialized for the COVID-19?
Yeah, well, we have we work with the county, Monmouth County freeholders, and they have a Department of Health as well. And we're a part of the Monmouth Regional Health Commission. So there are a lot of very smart people who have been working in the health services field for decades, that are able, our Office of Emergency Management, our police, our fire, our EMTs, they all train for this. So every other day, I have a conference call with all my department heads from across the town. We give them an update, they give us updates, but I am here in the mayor's office, and I don't stop talking on the phone to all of our leaders, not only here in Middletown, but across the county and across the state. Yesterday, I was on the phone with the governor. I was on the phone with his office. I was on the phone with Senator Cory Booker and Congressman Chris Smith, and discussing the different things that Middletown needs, different things that we can do together and to help our businesses and our residents alike.
So, how do you think this will affect everyone once we come out of quarantine?
I think you're going to have, like I said earlier, you're going to have people begin to alter their ways of greeting people, and I think you are going to see. I think this is going to provide a valuable lesson of people ensuring that washing their hands after they come in contact with somebody else, critically important. And I think you are going to see that happen. Like all things that we see in time and in history, the people that are impacted by different events in the course of history always alter their mindset. And I do think you are going to see people be more conscious and be more understanding, and not always, just skip that washing of their hands or using hand sanitizer because they've known John Smith forever. It can't be like that. We all have to be very diligent, and we all have to be very weary that that there are viruses out there, and just because you're not symptomatic doesn't mean you don't have something that could be problematic for the person that you're interacting with.
So, for anyone struggling in this sort of hectic time, do you have any suggestions or words of wisdom?
I think the most important thing for people to realize is our country has been through difficult times in any decade, in any era that you can point out. And Middletown was founded in 1664, and we are a nation that was formed over 100 years later. So not only does our township, but our country has had its fair share of problems and times of peril. And what is most wonderful to see is that even during this difficult time, we're watching this pandemic not only affect our state, our town, but obviously our country and other countries all throughout the world. But with that epidemic reaching the far points of our planet, you're seeing a epidemic of compassion and love and selflessness that is good for humanity. It's good for all people. You're too young to. You probably weren't even born during 9/11.
Yeah.
But in the days and weeks following 9/11, we saw things that were very similar. People who were using their energy, their time, their resources to help others. And I think you're seeing that and more during this difficult time. You know, often we look at police officers and firefighters and EMTs as the frontline heroes. And that's incredibly true. That's what was true during 9/11. But during this crisis, it's the nurses and the doctors and the scientists and everybody that makes a hospital or a healthcare facility operate. And you don't need words of wisdom from politicians. You need to look at the actions of those people, of the things that they're doing. And that is where people's inspiration should come from. You have nurses and doctors who are working 12-hour shifts, dealing with people that they know are going to unfortunately and sadly pass away. You're dealing and looking and watching scientists work around the clock to develop a cure for this disease. Those are the people that serve as the inspiration, not politicians. This isn't a time for politics. It's not a time for angry rhetoric or finger pointing. There'll be time for that, and there'll be time to have a post-mortem and look at what could have been and what would have been better. But today and for the foreseeable future, it's going to be about the frontline heroes that are working tirelessly, that are dealing with so many sick individuals who are just hoping and praying to get better, and their families who are hoping and praying the same thing. So my words of wisdom for anybody that watches this would be, look at the heroes that you see in our hospitals. And it's not just the nurses and the doctors. It's the maintenance crews that are keeping those areas clean and secure. It's the security officers that are keeping those people safe. It's the administrators who are making, keeping the lights turned on. Those are the heroes of this pandemic. But with every difficult time, there is that silver lining to look at and those heroes to be grateful for. And it's time that we be grateful for all those nurses, doctors, scientists, and everybody else, every other team member that works in these hospitals. So that would be my words of wisdom.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. So is there anything else you would like to say?
No, but you're doing a great job. All right,
Okay.
you have a great day, okay?
You
Stay
too.
safe.
You too. Bye.